My mother-in-law screamed it in front of 20 people at her charity gala. She can't give you heirs, Owen. She's broken. 3 weeks later, at her estate's Thanksgiving dinner, I walked up to her with 2 envelopes. One had my 12-week ultrasound. The other had my husband's sterility diagnosis from Johns Hopkins. When she opened them, her champagne glass shattered on the marble floor, and the look on her face made every humiliating month worth it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Tuesday, September 19th, 8 weeks pregnant. The sun was barely up when Helen Stannis walked into our private sunroom without knocking. That should have been my first warning. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was eating Greek yogurt in my pajamas, scrolling through baby name websites I'd bookmarked 3 days earlier when the pregnancy test came back positive. 8 weeks along, and I hadn't told Owen yet. I'd been planning this perfect reveal, maybe at the family's Cape Cod estate next weekend, just the 2 of us, away from his mother's sprawling Beacon Hill mansion where we lived in what Helen called the young couple's wing, like we were characters in a Victorian novel. But Helen had other plans. She swept in wearing Chanel and certainty, followed by Walter Petter, the family attorney who'd handled Stannis' business for 30 years. My yogurt spoon clattered against the bowl. "We need to discuss your medical situation," Helen announced, settling into the chair across from me like she was opening a board meeting. Walter placed a manila folder on the table between us. The label read, "Confidential Medical Consultation, Sloane Stannis." That's my name now. Sloane Stannis. Used to be Sloane Morrison, pediatric nurse, studio apartment in Cambridge, a life that fit in 2 suitcases. 3 years of marriage to Owen Stannis had traded all that for this, a museum-piece bedroom in a house where breakfast required proper attire and your mother-in-law kept keys to every door. "I don't understand," I said, though my hands had already gone cold. "What medical situation?" Helen opened the folder with practiced precision. "Dr. Shelby Brennan reviewed your fertility tests. The results are conclusive." She slid a document across the table. Medical letterhead, impressive credentials, words like premature ovarian failure and negligible conception probability swimming in front of my eyes. Owen appeared in the doorway. I waited for him to ask what was happening, to defend me, to say this was insane. Instead, he leaned against the frame, arms crossed, studying the Persian rug like it held answers to questions he wasn't asking. "Owen knew about this?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "We all need to face facts," Helen continued, her tone the same one she used with household staff who'd burned the roast. "The Stannis line cannot end because of your deficiency. We've been patient, given you 3 years, but Owen needs an heir. An heir. Like we were breeding thoroughbreds. Like I was livestock that had failed inspection. These tests, I managed, pointing at the papers I couldn't quite focus on. When did I take these tests?" "Dr. Brennan extrapolated from your recent blood work," Walter interjected smoothly. "She's a specialist in reproductive endocrinology. Her findings are quite definitive." Extrapolated. Definitive. Words that meant they'd taken my routine physical results and spun them into a narrative that fit Helen's purpose. My hand moved instinctively to my stomach, where an 8-week-old cluster of cells was busy becoming a person. A person that Dr. Patricia Chen had confirmed last Thursday with an ultrasound and glowing health markers. The ultrasound photo was in my purse. Right now. 10 feet away on the console table. But there was something else in that purse, too. Something I'd found 6 months ago, tucked in a box of Owen's childhood medical records that Helen thought she destroyed. A letter from Johns Hopkins, dated 3 years before we met. Owen's test results after a severe case of mumps at age 19. The diagnosis was clear: severe oligospermia secondary to bilateral orchitis. Sperm count of only 5 million per milliliter when normal range started at 15 million. Motility at just 12% when normal was over 40. The doctor's conclusion was stark: natural conception probability less than 5% without assisted reproductive technology. Helen didn't know I had that letter. She'd spent considerable money making sure those records disappeared. But the hospital kept digital backups, and Owen's cousin Johnny worked in medical records at Johns Hopkins. Johnny had always been the black sheep of the family, chose to work in healthcare instead of joining the shipping business, which Helen considered beneath the Stannis name. He'd always been kind to me at family gatherings, one of the few who treated me like I belonged. When I'd casually asked him for Owen's vaccination history for our fertility specialist, a legitimate medical reason for a spouse to request records, Johnny had included everything, including the diagnosis Helen had buried. I looked at my husband, still studying that rug, and realized he wasn't surprised by any of this. He'd known this breakfast was coming. Maybe he'd even helped plan it. "I need some air," I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the hardwood. Helen's expression flickered. She'd expected tears, maybe pleading. "Not this cold," calm exit. "We're not finished discussing," she started. "Yes, we are." I grabbed my purse, feeling the weight of my secrets inside. "For now." I walked out of that sunroom carrying two truths Helen Stannis had no idea I possessed: proof that I could have children, and proof that her son probably couldn't. If she wanted to play dynasty games with my body as the battlefield, she was about to learn that I kept receipts. And I knew exactly how to use them. Let me back up and explain how I ended up married into Boston royalty in the first place, because it matters. 4 years ago, I was a completely different person. Sloan Morrison, 26 years old, pediatric nurse at Boston Children's Hospital, living in a cramped studio in Cambridge with a cat named Meredith and student loans that would have made my grandchildren weep if I'd ever planned to have any. I met Owen at a museum fundraiser I'd been guilted into attending by my college roommate who worked in development. I'd borrowed a dress, nursed one glass of cheap wine all night, and was seriously considering faking a medical emergency to escape when this man in a perfectly tailored suit asked if I thought the Monet was overrated. "I think it's a painting," I'd said, because I knew nothing about art and was too tired from a double shift to pretend otherwise. "And it's probably worth more than my entire life." He'd laughed. Actually laughed, not that polite chuckle rich people do when they're being charitable. "I'm Owen," he said, extending his hand. "Sloan. And I'm only here because my roommate promised there'd be good cheese." We spent the next hour talking about everything except art, my ridiculous hospital stories, his complaints about family business expectations, our shared love of bad reality TV that neither of us admitted to watching in public. He seemed normal. Funny, even. Self-aware about his privilege in a way that felt genuine rather than performative. He didn't tell me his last name until the third date. By then, I was already falling for the guy who'd shown up at my apartment with Thai food and binge-watched trashy television with me until 3 a.m. When he finally admitted he was Owen Stannis, as in the Stannis shipping fortune, the Stannis Foundation, the Stannis wing of half the hospitals in Boston, I'd already decided it didn't matter. That was my first mistake. The second was meeting Helen. She'd insisted on lunch at her cottage in Newport the weekend after Owen told her about me. The cottage turned out to be a 12-bedroom mansion with more staff than my entire hospital floor. Helen had greeted me in pearls and judgment, her smile never reaching her eyes as she looked me over like I was a suspicious mole that needed biopsy. "A nurse," she'd said, making it sound like I'd admitted to being a professional arsonist. How practical. The lunch had been an interrogation disguised as polite conversation. My family background, middle class, decidedly unglamorous, my education, state school, full scholarship, my career ambitions, helping sick children, apparently the wrong answer. By the time dessert arrived, I knew Helen had already decided I wasn't good enough for her son. Owen had kissed me in the car afterward and promised his mother would come around. "She's protective," he'd said. "Give her time." I gave her 3 years. She never came around. But Owen had been different back then, or maybe I'd just wanted to believe he was. He proposed on a beach in Maine, just the two of us and a sunset that looked like it had been ordered from Central Casting. No family pressure, no elaborate production, just a man asking a woman to spend their lives together. The wedding was where things started to shift. Helen had insisted on taking over the planning. "The Stannis family has certain standards, dear," and suddenly my small ceremony vision became a 300-person production at the estate. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My family, overwhelmed and underdressed, had clustered together like refugees while Helen's friends discussed their vacation homes and investment portfolios. My mother had pulled me aside during the reception. "It's not too late to run," she'd whispered, only half joking. "I've got the car running." I'd laughed it off. I was in love. Love conquered all, right? Turns out love conquers everything except a mother-in-law with unlimited resources and a pathological need to control her son's life. The first year of marriage had been survivable because Owen had maintained some boundaries. We'd lived in a brownstone in Back Bay, 30 minutes from the estate, with space that was ours. Helen would call constantly, show up unannounced, insert herself into every decision from furniture to dinner plans, but at least we could close a door and pretend we had privacy. Then Owen's father died suddenly, heart attack during a board meeting, and everything changed. Helen, drowning in grief and fury at being widowed at 62, had demanded we move into the estate. "I can't be alone in this enormous house," she'd sobbed. "I need family close." Owen, devastated by his father's death, couldn't say no to her. We packed up our independence and moved into the East Wing, and I watched my marriage become a subsidiary of Helen Stannis's emotional empire. That was 2 years ago. For the first year in the estate, I'd tried. God, I'd tried. I quit my nursing job because Helen said it was unseemly for a Stannis wife to work. I joined her charity committees, learned which fork to use at formal dinners, memorized the genealogy of Boston's old money families. I smiled through her corrections about my posture, my accent, my laugh that was too loud for polite company. I became smaller and quieter and more acceptable, and it still wasn't enough. Because the real issue was never my manners or my background. The real issue was that I wasn't Meryl Booth, the prep school girlfriend with the right pedigree and the family connections that would have merged 2 dynasties. Helen had wanted Owen to marry Meryl. She'd probably planned their wedding before Owen had even met me. And now, sitting in my bedroom after that brutal breakfast, I understood. Helen hadn't just been disappointed I wasn't Meryl. She'd been waiting for an excuse to replace me with her. The fake infertility diagnosis was that excuse. My phone buzzed with a text from Owen. "Mom means well. Let's talk tonight." Mom means well. Like gaslighting your daughter-in-law about her fertility was a quirky character trait rather than emotional terrorism. I pulled out my purse and removed 2 items. The first was the ultrasound photo from Dr. Chen. I'd had my first prenatal appointment just days after the positive test, and she'd confirmed everything was perfect. There was the blob that would become my baby, circled in red, with measurements and a due date printed in the corner. 8 weeks, 2 days. Heart rate 170 BPM. Perfectly healthy. The second was a photocopy of Owen's medical records from Johns Hopkins. I'd had the original sealed in a safety deposit box at a bank in Cambridge, one Helen didn't know I had access to, opened 6 months ago using my maiden name. The relevant section was highlighted in yellow. Patient presents with severe oligospermia secondary to bilateral orchitis. Sperm count 5 million/ml, normal range 15 to 200 million/ml. Motility severely compromised at 12%, normal greater than 40%. Natural conception probability less than 5% without assisted reproductive technology. Patient counseled on poor fertility prognosis. The report was dated 6 years ago. Owen had been 23, recovering from the worst case of mumps his doctors had ever seen. He'd been hospitalized for 2 weeks, and the complications had left him functionally infertile. Helen knew. She had to know. She'd been the one taking care of him, the one meeting with specialists, the one who'd had these records buried so deep that Owen himself probably forgot they existed. When he'd met me, when he'd proposed, when we'd started trying for a baby, he'd never mentioned any of this. Either he didn't know how bad the damage was, or he'd been lying the entire time. I pulled up my laptop and started a new document. If Helen wanted to play games with medical records, I'd play them right back. But I needed to be smart. Strategic. I needed to understand exactly what she was planning before I revealed my hand. Starting now, I was documenting everything. September-December, 8 to 12 weeks pregnant. Looking back, the withdrawal started exactly 4 months ago. September 15th. The day after my first appointment with Dr. Vivian Cross, the fertility specialist Helen had insisted I see. That night, Owen didn't come to bed. I found him at 2 a.m. in his father's old study, nursing scotch in the dark. Just thinking about Dad, he'd said. But then he was there again the next night. And the night after. By the end of the week, his clothes had migrated from our walk-in closet to the study's armoire. I don't want to wake you when I have early meetings. The early meetings became a religion. 5:30 a.m. departures. By the time I got up, he'd be gone. Just a coffee mug in the sink and the faint smell of his cologne mixing with my growing loneliness. In October, Owen locked me out of our shared calendar without explanation. IT issue at the office, he said. Security upgrade. It was never fixed. I started learning his schedule from Helen's assistant, like a stranger asking about his availability. Tabitha stopped answering my calls around the same time. Owen's younger sister had been my closest ally. She'd tried to warn me early on that Helen always had plans, but I hadn't understood. Suddenly, my texts went blue and unanswered. When I finally ran into her at the country club, she looked almost guilty. Sorry, Sloan. I've just been so busy with the foundation. Later, I saw her laughing with Meryl Booth on the terrace, heads bent together like old friends. The Stannis Foundation board meetings were next. Helen's assistant called. Mrs. Stannis feels the board should be limited to blood family and legacy members. Nothing personal. Everything about Helen was personal. Meryl Booth inherited my committee chair position the following week. Meryl, who'd dated Owen through Harvard, who Helen had wanted him to marry. Suddenly Meryl was everywhere. Wednesday family dinners I wasn't invited to. Foundation galas where she stood next to Owen in photos that ran in the Globe Society pages. I wasn't in a single shot. I found her lipstick in Owen's car 3 weeks ago. Crimson Red by Tom Ford. When I asked Owen about it, he barely looked up from his phone. Must be from when I gave her a ride after the foundation dinner. The foundation dinner I hadn't been invited to. Angel flew up from New York last week, took one look at me, and said, "What the hell is happening to you?" She'd opened my closet to find it half empty. Found my nursing diploma boxed in the basement. "This isn't marriage," she said quietly. "This is an audition you're failing on purpose." But she was wrong. I wasn't failing an audition. I was being edited out of a story Helen had already rewritten. Every photograph I'd hung in the main house, gone, replaced with Stannis family portraits that predated me. My name removed from charitable donor lists. My seat at family dinners eliminated like I'd never existed. I'd been so focused on trying to fit into their world, I didn't notice they'd been erasing me from it one piece at a time. After Angel left, she'd extended her trip, working remotely, refusing to leave until she knew I was okay. I started making lists. Hidden in my bathroom. Every instance of Owen's withdrawal, every time Helen had undermined me, every appearance of Meryl Booth. Dates, times, witnesses. September 16th, Owen moved into father's study. October 3rd, removed from foundation board. October 10th, first sighting of Meryl at family dinner. November 1st, Helen gave Meryl the Stannis pearls. November 8th, found Meryl's lipstick in Owen's car. December 18th, overheard Helen on phone, "By spring, everything will be properly arranged." The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't a marriage falling apart naturally. This was a planned demolition, and Helen was the foreman. I pulled up my laptop and searched for Dr. Vivian Cross. Her website showed she sat on the board of Stannis Memorial Hospital, appointed 3 years ago, recommended by Helen herself. She'd attended multiple Stannis Foundation events, always photographed next to Helen. The fertility appointment hadn't been routine at all. It had been reconnaissance. My phone buzzed with a text from Owen. Dinner tonight? Mom's chef is making your favorite. The main dining room, where Helen held court, and I was seated at the far end like a guest who'd overstayed their welcome. This was it. Whatever Helen had been planning for 4 months, tonight was probably the reveal. I had 4 hours to prepare. I photographed my lists, uploaded them to cloud storage Helen didn't know existed. Made copies of Owen's medical records, my ultrasound, every piece of evidence. One set went into my safety deposit box in Cambridge. Another went into an envelope addressed to Angel with instructions to open if anything happened to me. Next, I needed to look the part. Helen expected me diminished, worried, accepting. I chose a dress she'd bought me, soft pink, demure. Minimal makeup, hair in a simple bun, the pearl earrings Owen had given me. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. 3 years ago, I'd had opinions and personality and a career I loved. Now I looked like a paper doll, waiting for someone else to tell me what to do next. But paper dolls were easy to underestimate. And that was exactly what I needed Helen to do. At 6:45, I walked through the estate's marble hallways toward the main dining room. I could hear voices, Helen's imperious tone, Owen's deeper responses, and a third voice I recognized immediately. Meryl Booth. Helen sat at the head of the table wearing diamonds and determination. Owen was to her right, tie loosened. And directly across from him, in what used to be my seat, sat Meryl Booth. She looked perfect. Cashmere sweater, tasteful jewelry, hair professionally styled. She looked like she belonged here in a way I never had. Sloane, Helen said, gesturing to the only empty chair, at the far end of the table, 8 feet of polished mahogany separating me from the others. So glad you could join us. Wednesday, December 20th, 10 weeks pregnant. The next morning, I woke up to find the locks on our wing's door had been changed. The key that had worked for 3 years suddenly didn't fit. When I opened the door from inside, I saw a newly installed keypad lock on the exterior. Helen was making her move. I texted Owen, "Why is there a new lock on our door?" 20 minutes later, security upgrade. Mother's concerned about estate safety. Code is 1847. 1847, the year the Stannis Shipping Company was founded. Helen now had digital access to my bedroom. I called Patricia Brennan, my lawyer. My mother-in-law just installed a lock she controls on my bedroom door. That's illegal, Patricia said immediately. Massachusetts law is clear about spousal rights to marital property. Can you meet me in an hour? I spent the morning trying to hire a locksmith. Helen had called every service in Boston, claiming I was unstable. Finally, a company from Providence agreed to help. By 3 o'clock, the exterior keypad was removed and a new deadbolt installed. One that only Owen and I had keys to. Helen showed up at 3:47 p.m. I watched from the window as she approached our door, punched in her code, and found it didn't work. She tried twice more, then pulled out her phone. Owen called me 30 seconds later. "Why did you change the locks?" "Because your mother installed a lock she could control without asking me. This is our home, Owen. Our private space. She's concerned about you. About your mental state after everything." I laughed, bitter. My mental state. I'm not the one who manufactured a fake medical diagnosis, Owen. I know. But can you try to see this from her perspective? She's scared. She tried to replace me. She recruited your ex-girlfriend, excluded me from family events, and paid a doctor to diagnose me with infertility. And now I'm supposed to care about her perspective? Silence. "The locks stay changed," I said firmly. "If Helen wants access, she can knock like a normal person." I hung up. 20 minutes later, Owen knocked. Behind him in the hallway hovered Helen. "We need to talk," Owen said. "Then talk. Out here." "She's not coming in." Helen's face tightened. "This is my house." "This is your son's house," I corrected. "Which he shares with his wife." Who is pregnant with your grandchild? Who you tried to have declared infertile so you could replace her? I think we should all sit down calmly, Owen tried. No. I'm done being calm while your mother destroys my life. Here's what's going to happen. Helen apologizes for what she did. She retracts the fake diagnosis. She stops inviting Meryl to family events. And she stays out of our wing, our marriage, and our medical decisions. Permanently. Helen laughed. You think you can dictate terms to me? In my own home? I have a lawyer who thinks I can do a lot more than that. Would you like to find out what else Patricia Brennan thinks? She's very creative when it comes to restraining orders. The smile disappeared from Helen's face. You're overreacting, Owen said uncertainly. Mother made a mistake, yes, but threatening legal action against family. She stopped being family when she tried to erase me. I looked at Owen directly. You need to decide whose side you're on. Right now. Because I'm done. I'm 10 weeks pregnant, being stalked and harassed, and my husband keeps telling me I'm imagining it. So choose. It's not that simple. It really is. He looked between us, and I saw the little boy who'd never learned to stand up to Helen warring with the man who'd promised to love me. The little boy won. Can we just give it a few days? Let everyone calm down. Find a compromise. There is no compromise with gaslighting, Owen. But I was so tired. Fine. A few days. But the locks stay. And if your mother tries to access our wing without permission, I'm calling the police. As they walked away, I heard Helen's voice, sharp and carrying. This is what happens when you marry beneath you. No breeding, no class, no respect for family. I closed the door and locked it. The deadbolt slid home with a satisfying click. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Tabitha. Can we meet? Please. There's something you need to know about Mother's plans. I texted back, coffee. Public place. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. at the cafe on Newbury Street. Her response was immediate, thank you. Come alone. Don't tell Owen. I poured myself water and sat on the bed, one hand on my stomach. 10 weeks. Something growing. Something worth protecting. My laptop pinged with an email. The subject line made my blood run cold. Urgent, Stannis Foundation personnel matter. The email was from Helen's assistant, CCNG the entire foundation board. Dear board members, it has come to our attention that Mrs. Sloane Stannis has been experiencing significant health and mental stability concerns. In light of these issues, and pending medical evaluation, we recommend temporarily suspending her involvement in foundation activities. She'd done it. She'd told everyone who mattered in Boston that I was mentally unstable. Right after I'd proven her fake diagnosis was fraudulent. Right after I'd locked her out of my bedroom. This was war. I forwarded the email to Patricia. Is this defamation? Her response came within minutes, borderline. But combined with everything else? We might have a case. Don't respond. Let me handle this. But I couldn't let Patricia handle it alone. Helen had just told all of Boston I was crazy. If I let this stand, I'd be the unstable wife who couldn't handle marrying into the Stannis family. I pulled up my contacts and found the number I'd been saving for months. A journalist at the Boston Globe who'd interviewed me back when I was still on the foundation board. She'd given me her card with a knowing look that said she saw more than she could print. My finger hovered over the call button. Once I did this, there was no going back. This would explode everything. But Helen had fired the first shot. And I was done playing defense. I pressed call. Thursday, December 21st, 10 weeks pregnant. The journalist's name was Rebecca Cross. She answered on the second ring. Sloane Stannis. I was wondering when you'd call. You were expecting me? I've been covering Boston families for 8 years. I know the pattern. Young woman marries into old money, disappears from public events, then either resurfaces divorced or doesn't resurface at all. You've been disappearing for months. I'm not vanishing, I said. And I'm not disappearing anymore. Good. Want to tell me why Helen Stannis just sent an email to half of Boston's elite suggesting you're mentally unstable? So she'd already seen it. Off the record? I asked. For now. I told her everything. The fake infertility diagnosis, Owen's hidden medical records proving his severe oligospermia, Meryl Booth's recruitment, the systematic erasure from family events. By the time I finished, Rebecca was silent for a long moment. Holy shit, she finally said. That's not just family drama. That's psychological abuse and medical fraud. Can you prove it? Can you? I have documentation. Medical records, emails, witness statements. Everything. Then don't call me yet, Rebecca said. Here's what's going to happen. Helen is going to escalate. She's going to plant evidence supporting her narrative about your instability. She's going to manipulate situations to make you look irrational. How do you know? Because that's what abusers with resources do. Document everything. Every interaction, every email, every witness. When you go public, and you will have to, Helen will come at you with everything she has. I have the proof. Then get ready for war. After I hung up, I started preparing. I set up security cameras in our wing, small, discreet ones from Amazon. If Helen tried to enter without permission, I'd have video evidence. I made copies of everything and distributed them. One set to Angel in New York. Another to my safety deposit box. A third uploaded to encrypted cloud storage with instructions to automatically email Rebecca if I didn't check in weekly. The next morning, I met Tabitha at the cafe on Newbury Street. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy ponytail. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. You ghosted me for 3 months. Why should I trust you now? Because I'm done protecting Mother. Tabitha's hands shook around her coffee cup. I should have warned you months ago. I'm sorry. I screenshot these texts back in September but was too afraid to send them. Helen threatened to cut off Paul's and my trust fund if I interfered. She pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots from Helen to Tabitha. The fertility tests confirm what I suspected. Sloane is unsuitable. We need to handle this carefully. Owen is attached. We need to make him see reason gradually. I've contacted Meryl. She's agreed to help for the good of the family. By Christmas, Owen will understand the marriage was a mistake. She planned this for months, I whispered. Longer, Tabitha said. She never wanted Owen to marry you. The fertility angle was just the excuse she'd been waiting for. Why didn't you tell me? Because I'm a coward. Mother controls everything, my trust fund, my position in the foundation, my entire life. Paul and I are barely hanging on financially. If I went against her, she'd cut us off completely. What changed? Tuesday's dinner. Watching her attack you while you were pregnant. And then last night, Tabitha's voice dropped. Last night she told me the next phase of her plan. What plan? She's going to have you committed. The words hung between us. What? She's been documenting everything. Every time you've seemed upset or irrational, in her view. The changed locks this morning? She told the estate staff you're paranoid and delusional. The email to the foundation board? That's step 1. Next, she's going to stage incidents that make you look unstable. What kind of incidents? I don't know specifics. But she mentioned Caroline. Your father's sister. Tabitha nodded. Caroline tried to expose Mother's affair with Walter Petter. Mother couldn't let that come out, so she destroyed Caroline's credibility first, then had her committed. By the time Caroline got out, no one believed anything she said. Suddenly, Walter's presence at the breakfast ambush made sense. He wasn't just the family attorney, he was Helen's accomplice. How do I stop her? I asked. I don't know if you can. Mother's been planning this too long. She has too many connections, too much power. The best thing you can do is get out before she destroys you. I'm pregnant with her grandchild. She doesn't care. The baby just has to be born healthy. After that, she'll find a way to take custody. Claim you're unfit. Use the same playbook she used with Caroline. I stood up. Watch me fight back. Wait, Tabitha grabbed my arm. There's one more thing. Mother's been having you followed. A private investigator, documenting everything. She's looking for anything she can use against you. Let her look, I said. I've got nothing to hide. But as I walked out of that cafe, I felt the weight of invisible eyes following me. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia. I need to file a restraining order application. And I need to know my legal rights regarding psychiatric evaluation in Massachusetts. What happened? Patricia's voice sharpened. My mother-in-law is planning to have me institutionalized. Just like she did to her sister-in-law 23 years ago. Meet me at my office. Now. 3 blocks from the estate, I noticed a silver Toyota following me. Same car I'd seen parked across the street yesterday. The private investigator. Fine. Let him follow me to my lawyer's office. Let him document me protecting my rights. At Patricia's office, we spent 3 hours preparing documentation. The restraining order application. Letters to the foundation board correcting Helen's false statements. This is going to get ugly, Patricia warned. Helen will fight back. Hard. Let her, I said. I'm done being afraid of her. But as I left and saw the silver Toyota still following me, I felt real fear for the first time. Not for myself, for my baby. Because Helen didn't just want to destroy me. She wanted to take everything. Including the child I was carrying. Monday, December 18th, 10 weeks pregnant. The incident happened 3 days later, and it was so perfectly staged that I almost admired Helen's creativity. I was at the grocery store, Whole Foods on Newbury Street, because even in crisis, the Stannis family shopped at appropriate establishments. I was in the produce section, trying to decide between organic and regular strawberries, when I felt it. That prickle on the back of your neck that says someone's watching. I turned. Helen stood 15 feet away, flanked by 2 women I recognized from her charity committee. She was pointing at me, her voice carrying across the organic vegetables with theatrical precision. I'm just so worried about her, Helen was saying, loud enough for nearby shoppers to hear. The delusions have gotten worse. Yesterday she accused me of trying to poison her. Our family doctor is very concerned. I froze, strawberries forgotten. This was it. The setup Tabitha had warned me about. One of Helen's friends, Margaret something, from the Historical Society, made sympathetic noises. Oh, Helen, how awful. Is she getting help? We're trying to arrange treatment, but she's refusing. She's become paranoid, combative. Poor Owen is beside himself. I should have walked away. Should have documented it silently and left. But anger overrode common sense. I never accused you of poisoning me, I said, my voice sharp and clear. Every head in produce turned toward us. That's a complete fabrication. Helen's expression shifted to concern so perfectly practiced it could have won an Oscar. Sloane, sweetheart, please don't make a scene. We've talked about this. The stress of the pregnancy. Stop it. I took a step toward her, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Satisfaction. She wanted me angry. Wanted me to look unhinged in front of witnesses. You're lying. You know you're lying. Everyone here should know you're lying. Perhaps we should go somewhere private, Margaret suggested, reaching for my arm. I jerked away. Don't touch me. I don't know you. More people were stopping now, phones coming out. Someone was definitely recording. Perfect. Exactly what Helen wanted, video evidence of me looking paranoid and aggressive. Sloan, Helen's voice was pure maternal concern. You're scaring people. Please, let's go outside and talk calmly. There's nothing wrong with me. My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. You're the one who's been gaslighting me for months. You manufactured a fake medical diagnosis. You tried to replace me with my husband's ex-girlfriend. You've been plotting to have me committed. Oh, honey. Helen turned to her friends, shaking her head sadly. This is exactly what we've been dealing with. The paranoid accusations, the conspiracy theories. Her doctor recommended immediate evaluation, but she ran away before we could help her. I'm not paranoid. I have proof. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking with adrenaline. She claims to have proof of all sorts of things, Helen explained to the growing crowd. Medical records she says she found, emails she insists exist. Her therapist believes she may be experiencing a psychotic break triggered by pregnancy hormones. I don't have a therapist. See what I mean? Helen's voice was infinitely patient, infinitely sad. She doesn't remember her appointments. Poor thing. The baby's father is trying to get her into a facility where they can help her safely deliver. That's when I realized how perfectly she'd orchestrated this. Every word chosen to make me sound delusional while making herself sound like a concerned mother-in-law. Every detail designed to create a narrative of my mental breakdown. And I'd walked right into it. Shouting in a grocery store, looking wild and unstable, while she stood calm and reasonable. You're recording this, I said, looking around at the phones pointed in my direction. Good. Keep recording. Because this is elder abuse and psychological manipulation, and I want proof that I named it in public. Sloan, please, Helen reached out to me. I stepped back. Do not touch me. Do not approach me. I have a lawyer, I have documentation, and I will press charges if you continue to harass me. Store security approached, young guys in polo shirts looking uncertain about what to do with two well-dressed women having a confrontation in produce. Ma'am, we're going to need you to calm down, one of them said to me. I am calm, I said, though I absolutely wasn't. That woman is harassing me. I want her removed from the store. I'm just trying to help, Helen said softly. She's my daughter-in-law. She's not well. She's lying, I insisted. But even to my own ears, I sounded unhinged. The security guard was looking at me like I was the problem. The crowd was murmuring, and I caught words like poor thing, and pregnancy hormones, and mental breakdown. This was exactly what Helen wanted. Public documentation of my instability. I pulled out my phone and dialed Patricia Brennan. She answered immediately. I'm at Whole Foods on Newbury Street, I said, keeping my voice as level as possible. Helen Stannis is here staging a public confrontation to make me look mentally unstable. There are witnesses and video. I need you here now. Don't say anything else, Patricia commanded. Not one word. I'm 10 minutes away. I lowered the phone and looked directly at Helen. My attorney is coming. You can explain to her why you're violating the restraining order I filed yesterday. Helen's mask slipped, just for a second. She hadn't known about the restraining order. It hadn't been served yet. Patricia had said it would take a few days to process. But the lie worked. Helen took a step back, uncertainty crossing her face. There's no restraining order, she said, but she sounded less certain. There will be by tomorrow morning, I said. Congratulations, Helen. You just gave me more evidence of harassment to add to the file. I turned to the security guards. I'm going to wait outside for my lawyer. If that woman follows me, I want you to call the police. I walked out of that store with as much dignity as I could manage, aware of every phone camera following my exit. My hands were still shaking when I reached my car. The silver Toyota was in the parking lot. Helen's investigator, documenting everything. I waved at him. Let him have footage of me acknowledging his presence. Let him report back that I wasn't afraid anymore. Patricia arrived 12 minutes later, pulling up in her BMW with the efficiency of someone who'd dealt with family law emergencies before. I filled her in while we sat in my car. "She's good," Patricia said when I finished. "Staging a public confrontation where you'd look irrational defending yourself. Classic gaslighting technique. Did I just destroy any chance I had of looking credible? No. You named what she was doing in public. That's actually smart. And the fact that you called your lawyer immediately instead of continuing to engage shows you were thinking clearly." She paused. "But this confirms something I suspected. Helen's not going to stop. She's escalating towards some kind of endgame. Commitment. She wants me institutionalized. She wants control of the baby," Patricia corrected. "Commitment is just the mechanism. If she can have you declared incompetent, she can petition for custody of your child when it's born. Claim you're unfit, dangerous, a risk to the infant. On what grounds? She's building them. The grocery store scene will be reported as you having a public breakdown. The email to the foundation board. Whatever her private investigator has documented. Owen's testimony about your paranoia and irrational behavior. It adds up to a concerning pattern. But none of it's true. Doesn't matter. It looks true. And in family court, appearance often matters more than reality." I felt sick. So what do? We go on offense. Hard and fast. File the restraining order with today's incident attached. Get you evaluated by a psychiatrist who'll testify you're completely sane. Start documenting Helen's harassment instead of just defending yourself against it. And," she hesitated, "we might need to consider going public with this." The journalist. Rebecca Cross. "Yes. If this becomes a public story, Helen can't quietly have you committed. Too much scrutiny. But it also means burning every bridge. The Stannis family will never forgive you. They never accepted me in the first place." Patricia nodded. "Then we prepare for war. Because that's what this is." We spent the next hour in her car, strategizing. By the time she left, I had a plan. Not a perfect plan, but something that felt like fighting back instead of just defending. I drove home, back to the estate, because I refused to be driven out of my own home, and found Owen waiting in our wing. He looked exhausted, older somehow than his 32 years. "Mother called," he said. "She said you had an episode at Whole Foods. Accused her of persecution in front of everyone. Your mother staged a confrontation to make me look mentally unstable," I corrected. "There's a difference. Sloane, I know you're stressed, but you can't keep making these accusations. Stop." I held up my hand. "I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear me. Your mother is systematically trying to destroy my credibility so she can have me declared incompetent and take custody of our baby. This is not stress. This is not pregnancy hormones. This is real, it's documented, and it's happening. That's insane. Is it? Your Aunt Caroline was institutionalized under mysterious circumstances 23 years ago after challenging your mother's authority. Did you know that?" Owen's face went pale. "Caroline was mentally ill. She had to be hospitalized for her own safety." "According to who?" "Your mother. The doctors your mother hired." "Think about it, Owen. Really think. What proof do you have that Caroline was actually sick and not just inconvenient? You're reaching. Making connections that don't exist. Then explain the grocery store. Explain why your mother just happened to be there with witnesses. Explain why she loudly discussed my supposed mental health issues in public. Explain the private investigator who's been following me for weeks." "What investigator?" "The one your mother hired. Silver Toyota, license plate 4BRT 892. He's been documenting my movements, looking for anything she can use against me." Owen ran his hands through his hair. "Even if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, what do you want me to do?" "Choose," I said simply. "Choose me or choose her. Because I'm done trying to manage both relationships. I'm 10 weeks pregnant, being stalked and harassed, and my husband keeps telling me I'm imagining it. So choose. It's not that simple. It really is. He looked at me, and I saw the moment he made his decision. Not through words, but through the defeat in his eyes, the slump of his shoulders. I need some air, he said, and walked out. He chose. He just didn't choose me. I sat on the bed, one hand on my stomach, and let myself cry. Not for the marriage, that had been dead for months. But for the future I'd imagined. The family we'd never be. The father my child deserved and wouldn't have. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Rebecca Cross. Heard about the grocery store incident. Helen's already spinning it to her contacts. If you want to control the narrative, we need to talk. Tonight. I stared at the message for a long time. Once I called Rebecca back, once I told her everything, there was no undoing it. The story would run. Boston would know. The Stannis family would become a public scandal. But if I didn't act, Helen would win. She'd have me committed, take my baby, and erase me just like she'd erased Caroline. I typed back, where and when. The response was immediate, my office. 8 p.m. Bring everything. I had 3 hours to decide if I was really ready to burn it all down. I spent 2 of those hours packing everything I'd need into a single suitcase. Clothes, documents, the few personal items that still felt like mine. By 7:30, I was ready to walk out of the Stannis estate forever. But first, I had one last thing to do. Tuesday evening, December 19th, 11 weeks pregnant. I didn't go to Rebecca's office at 8 p.m. Instead, I did something Helen would never expect. I went to see Walter Petter. The family lawyer's brownstone in Back Bay screamed old money and older secrets. I showed up unannounced at 7:45. He opened the door in shirt sleeves, scotch in hand. His surprise was immediate. Sloane. This is unexpected. We need to talk. About Caroline Stannis. His expression shuddered. I don't discuss former clients. Caroline's dead. And I think you know exactly why. I showed him Tabitha's screenshot, Helen's texts about planning my removal. I also think you're going to help destroy me the same way you helped destroy her. Unless you'd like to explain to the Massachusetts Bar Association why you're complicit in fraud and conspiracy. Walter's jaw tightened. We stood in his doorway, engaged in a silent battle. Then he stepped aside. Come in. Quickly. His office was leather chairs and mahogany, walls lined with law books that probably hadn't been opened since the internet existed. He poured more scotch and didn't offer me any. What do you want? He asked. The truth about Caroline. All of it. Attorney-client privilege. Doesn't cover ongoing fraud, I interrupted. Walter took a long drink, then sighed. Caroline found evidence of Helen's affair with me, he admitted. 23 years ago, when Richard was still alive. Caroline threatened to expose everything unless Helen stepped back from controlling the family finances. And Helen had her committed instead. Helen arranged for Caroline to be evaluated by Dr. Malcolm Brennan, Shelby's father. Medical dynasties run deep in Boston. Dr. Brennan diagnosed Caroline with delusional disorder. Said she was fabricating the affair, experiencing paranoid ideation. But the affair was real. Yes. Walter's voice was flat. Helen and I had been involved for 2 years. But there was no proof. Just Caroline's word against ours. And when a respected psychiatrist said she was delusional, who would believe her? So you let an innocent woman be institutionalized to cover up your affair. I was 35 and in love with Helen Stannis, Walter said, pain in his voice. I told myself Caroline was already unstable, that she needed help anyway. I've regretted it every day since. Not enough to stop Helen from doing it again. He flinched. What do you mean? She's building the same case against me. False medical diagnoses, documented incidents of instability, witnesses who'll testify to my erratic behavior. The grocery store confrontation was staged specifically to create evidence. I'm not involved in that. You were at the breakfast when she presented her fake infertility diagnosis. You legitimized it with your presence. You're involved. Walter set down his glass with a shaking hand. What do you want from me? I want Caroline's medical records. The real ones. I want documentation of your affair. I want proof that Dr. Brennan falsified his diagnosis. Everything you have. I don't have those files anymore. You're a lawyer who specializes in family dynasty protection, I interrupted. You keep copies of everything. Stop lying. We stared at each other. Then Walter walked to his desk, pulled out a key, and unlocked the bottom drawer. He withdrew a manila folder marked Stannis, Confidential, 1998. If Helen finds out I gave you this, she'll destroy me, he said. She's going to destroy you anyway, I replied. The second you're no longer useful, she'll do to you what she did to Caroline. I took the folder. Inside were medical records, correspondence between Helen and Dr. Malcolm Brennan, photographs of Walter and Helen at a hotel in the Berkshires. Evidence of the affair Caroline had tried to expose. Evidence of the conspiracy to silence her. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because I'm dying, Walter said simply. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, maybe. I'd like to die knowing I did one decent thing. I hadn't expected that. I'm sorry. Don't be. I earned this. He poured another scotch. But Sloane, be careful. What you're planning, going against Helen publicly, it's dangerous. She has resources you can't imagine. I have something she doesn't, I said. I have nothing left to lose. I left Walter's office and drove straight to Rebecca Cross's office. She was waiting, lights on. You're an hour late, she said. I thought you'd changed your mind. I was getting insurance. I dropped Caroline's folder on her desk. Caroline Stannis. Helen's first victim. Rebecca opened the folder, and I watched her expression change. Holy shit. This is Pulitzer-level investigative journalism. Medical fraud, conspiracy, institutionalization of a healthy woman. Do you understand what you're giving me? A story. One that needs to be told. One that will destroy the Stannis family's reputation, Rebecca corrected. Helen will sue. She'll come after you with everything. Are you ready? I thought about the baby growing inside me. About Caroline, dying alone in an institution. About every woman who'd been gaslit and silenced. I'm ready, I said. Rebecca pulled out her recorder. Then let's start at the beginning. We talked for 4 hours. I showed her Owen's medical records proving his severe oligospermia. My fertility results proving perfect health. The emails between Helen and Meryl. Documentation of the grocery store confrontation. Tabitha's testimony. Walter's confession. By midnight, Rebecca had filled 3 legal pads with notes. This story runs Sunday's edition, she said. Front page. I'll need to confirm everything with secondary sources. Helen will have until Friday to respond. She won't respond. She'll deny everything. Probably. But I have documentation. That's what matters. Rebecca paused. Where are you staying tonight? You can't go back to the estate. I know. I have a guest room. It's yours if you need it. I can't impose. You're not imposing. You're a source under protection. She smiled. Plus, you're pregnant and exhausted, and I'm not letting you check into some hotel where Helen's investigator can track you. I accepted. Rebecca's guest room was small and spare, but it was clean and quiet and somewhere Helen couldn't reach me. I lay in that unfamiliar bed, one hand on my stomach, thinking about what came next. The story would run Sunday. By Monday, all of Boston would know. And my life as I knew it would be over. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Sloan? The voice was unfamiliar. Female, older, trembling. This is Catherine Mercer. Caroline Stannis's daughter. I sat up. How did you get this number? Rebecca Cross gave it to me. She said you were looking into what happened to my mother. She said you were trying to stop Helen from doing it again. I am. Then you need to know something. My mother wasn't sick. She was perfectly healthy until Helen had her committed. And in that institution, they gave her drugs. So many drugs. Antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, sedatives. Enough to keep her in a fog for years. She died because of those drugs. Her heart couldn't handle it. Do you have proof? I have her medical records from the facility. The real ones. They show what they were giving her. Would you be willing to go on record? To tell your story to the press? Silence. Then, yes. If it stops Helen from doing this to someone else, yes. My mother deserves justice. Even if it's 23 years late. Thank you, I whispered. No. Thank you. For being brave enough to fight her. After Catherine hung up, I lay in the dark and felt something shift. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about protecting my baby. This was about Caroline. About Catherine. About every woman Helen had crushed. This was about making sure the monster finally faced consequences. Wednesday, December 20th, 11 weeks pregnant. Friday morning, I met with Dr. Sarah Klein, a psychiatrist Rebecca recommended. Independent, highly respected, impossible for Helen to discredit. Tell me why you're here, Dr. Klein said. I told her everything. The manufactured infertility diagnosis, Helen's systematic campaign, the grocery store confrontation, Caroline's story. I showed her documentation. How are you sleeping? She asked. Badly. But wouldn't you, if someone was trying to have you committed? Fair point. She smiled slightly. Any hallucinations, paranoid thoughts? No. Just the accurate observation that my mother-in-law is actually trying to destroy me. And you're pregnant. How far along? 11 weeks now. Dr. Klein conducted a full evaluation. Cognitive tests, mood assessments, mental health history. 2 hours later, she closed her notebook. You're one of the sanest people I've evaluated this month, she said. No evidence of psychosis, delusional thinking, or mood disorder. You're experiencing appropriate stress responses to genuine threats. That's not mental illness, that's survival instinct. Can you put that in writing? Already typing it up. You'll have a formal evaluation letter by end of day. And Sloan? If anyone tries to have you involuntarily committed, I'll testify on your behalf. What Helen Stannis is doing isn't just unethical, it's criminal. I left Dr. Klein's office and went straight to my bank in Cambridge, the one I'd opened 6 months ago using my maiden name. I'd been quietly transferring money from our joint account. Small amounts Owen wouldn't notice. The balance showed $47,000. Enough to start over. I withdrew $10,000 in cash and added it to my safety deposit box. If Helen froze my accounts, I'd have backup. Next stop was Angel's apartment. She'd driven up from New York Thursday night. You look terrible, she said when she opened the door. Thanks. She pulled me inside. Rebecca called. Said the story's running Sunday. Said it's going to be huge. It should be. Catherine Mercer agreed to go on record. Walter gave me everything. Dr. Klein confirmed I'm not crazy. It's airtight. Then why do you look like you're going to throw up? Because once that story runs, there's no going back. My marriage is over. The Stannis family will hate me forever. I'll be the woman who destroyed Boston's most respected dynasty. You're the woman who exposed abuse and medical fraud, Angel corrected. There's a difference. Angel sat beside me. Do you still love Owen? I thought about it. Really thought. I don't know. I loved who I thought he was. But that person might not exist. The real Owen can't stand up to his mother. Can't protect his wife. Then you're doing the right thing. It doesn't feel right. It feels terrifying. Good things usually do. Angel squeezed my hand. You're creating a safe life for your baby. That's what matters. My phone rang. Patricia Brennan. The restraining order was approved, she said. Helen Stannis must maintain 500 feet distance from you at all times. No contact, direct or indirect. I'm having it served this afternoon. She's going to lose her mind. Let her. If she violates it, she'll face criminal charges. Saturday morning, Rebecca got the call she'd been expecting. Helen wants to make a statement, Rebecca told me. Says she wants to set the record straight before publication. Are you going to do it? Absolutely. I want her on record. I want to hear what lies she tells. Rebecca paused. She also threatened to sue for defamation. You have documentation. I know. But she's going to fight this. Hard. Are you still ready? I thought about Caroline, dead at 43. About Catherine, living in fear for 23 years. About my baby, deserving better than a grandmother who destroyed anyone who challenged her. I'm ready, I said. Then we run it tomorrow. Front page. The Stannis dynasty's dark secret, how one family used medicine as a weapon. Tomorrow. In 24 hours, all of Boston would know the truth. And Helen Stannis would finally face consequences. Saturday, December 23rd, 11 weeks pregnant. Saturday night at 11 p.m., my phone rang. Owen's number, one I thought I'd blocked on all his devices. Somehow he'd found a way through. Don't hang up, he said before I could speak. Please. Just listen. I should have disconnected. Should have added this number to the block list. But something in his voice stopped me. Not anger or manipulation. Just exhaustion. I'm listening. Mother wants to meet with you. Tomorrow morning. Before the story runs. Absolutely not. She says she wants to apologize. To make things right. To discuss arrangements for the baby. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Owen, your mother has spent months trying to destroy me. She manufactured a medical diagnosis, recruited your ex-girlfriend to replace me, staged public confrontations to make me look insane, and tried to have me institutionalized like she did to Caroline. And you think she wants to apologize? I know it sounds insane. It sounds insane because it is insane. Your mother doesn't apologize. She doubles down. This is a trap. Silence. Then, what if it's not? What if she's genuinely trying to fix this before it becomes public? Then she can read about her apology options in tomorrow's Globe. Sloane, please. Just one meeting. Neutral location. I'll be there. Your lawyer can be there. Whatever makes you feel safe. But give her a chance to make this right. Why would I do that? Because she's offering you everything, Owen said, and now I heard the desperation. Full custody of the baby. A settlement. Her public support. All she wants is one conversation before the story runs. Everything. Helen was offering everything. Which meant she was terrified of what Sunday's publication would do to her reputation. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. Just a meeting. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The Newbury Hotel, private dining room. Neutral territory. I need to think about it. We need an answer tonight. Mother's flying to London tomorrow afternoon. If you want this settlement, it has to be tomorrow morning. Of course she was fleeing the country. Classic Helen, create chaos, then disappear while other people dealt with the consequences. I'll call you back in an hour. I hung up and immediately called Patricia Brennan. Helen wants a meeting. Tomorrow morning. Says she's offering full custody and a settlement. It's a trap, Patricia said instantly. She's trying to get you to sign something before the story runs. Probably an NDA with a gag order. You take her money, you can't talk about what she did. That's what I thought. But... Patricia paused. If we handle this right, it could work in our favor. How? We record the whole thing. Get her to admit what she did. Get her to make offers that prove she knows she's guilty. Then we use it in the article. Her own words condemning her. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state for phone calls. For phone calls, yes. But in-person conversations in private settings are legal to record if you're a participant. A hotel meeting room counts as semi-public. We'd be within the law. I thought about it. Walking into a room with Helen, even with Owen and Patricia present, felt dangerous. But getting her confession on tape, that would be devastating. What if she demands I sign something? You don't sign anything. We're there to listen to her offer, that's it. If she pushes, we walk out. But my guess is she'll talk herself into a corner trying to justify what she did. Narcissists always do. Okay, I said. Set it up. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Newbury Hotel. You, me, and a recording device. I'll bring two. Redundancy is our friend. After I hung up with Patricia, I called Rebecca. Helen wants a pre-publication meeting. We're recording it. Whatever she says, I want it in the story. That's gold, Rebecca said. Confronting the subject with evidence and recording their response. It's journalism ethics 101. Can you be there? As a witness? I'll be in the hotel. Not in the room, that would tip her off. But close enough to respond if things go wrong. I called Owen back. We'll meet. 9 a.m. Patricia Brennan will be with me. If your mother tries anything, and I mean anything, the deal is off and the story runs without modification. Thank you, Owen said, and he sounded relieved. Like he actually believed this meeting would fix things. Like his mother's apology could undo months of abuse. Owen, I said before hanging up. You know she's not actually sorry, right? You know this is damage control? I know my mother, he replied. And I know she loves this family more than anything. She won't let it be destroyed without a fight. That's what I'm afraid of. I spent the rest of Saturday preparing. Patricia came over with recording devices, a pen with a hidden microphone, a phone app with voice activation, a backup digital recorder in her briefcase. We practiced questions, anticipated Helen's responses, planned our exit strategy if things got hostile. Don't let her make you angry, Patricia coached. Stay calm, ask clarifying questions, let her talk. The more she says, the more she'll incriminate herself. What if she actually offers a good settlement? Then we take it to a separate negotiation after the story runs. Never negotiate under pressure, especially not with someone who's trying to silence you. Angel made dinner, pasta with marinara, simple and comforting. I picked at it, too nervous to eat properly. You don't have to do this, Angel said. You can just let the story run. You don't owe Helen anything. I know. But I want to see her face when she realizes she's lost. I want to watch her try to manipulate her way out of this one last time. And I want it on tape. That's cold. She made me cold. I set down my fork. 9 months ago, I would have done anything to make Helen like me. I would have twisted myself into whatever shape she wanted. But now? Now I just want her to face what she's done. Sunday morning came too fast. I dressed carefully, navy blue dress, professional and modest. Nothing Helen could criticize. Hair pulled back, minimal makeup, my grandmother's small gold cross necklace. I looked like someone going to a business meeting, not a confrontation. Patricia arrived at 8:30 with coffee and final instructions. Remember, we're there to listen. Let Helen make her pitch. Ask questions but don't negotiate. Our goal is to get her talking about what she did and why. And if she gets hostile, we leave. Simple as that. She needs this meeting more than we do. At 8:50, we walked into the Newbury Hotel. Rebecca was already there, sitting in the lobby with a laptop like any other guest working remotely. She met my eyes briefly, a silent signal that she was ready. The private dining room was on the second floor. Small, elegant, with a round table set for 4. Helen was already there, wearing Chanel and diamonds, looking like she was attending a charity luncheon rather than a last-ditch attempt to save her reputation. Owen sat beside her, pale and nervous. Walter Petter was there too, looking 10 years older than when I'd seen him days ago. His cancer, probably. Or his conscience. Sloane, Helen said, standing as I entered. Thank you for coming. I know we have much to discuss. I sat down across from her, Patricia beside me. Under the table, I pressed the button on the recording pen in my jacket pocket. Let's begin, I said. And Helen Stannis, for the first time in her life, started explaining herself. Helen folded her hands on the table, every inch the matriarch. I want to start by saying that everything I've done has been for the good of this family. That's not an apology, I noted. I'm providing context. Her smile was thin. The Stannis name has meant something in Boston for 170 years. That legacy requires protection. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. Like manufacturing fake medical diagnoses? I asked. Owen flinched. Helen's expression didn't change. Dr. Shelby Brennan provided a preliminary assessment based on available data, she said smoothly. It wasn't meant to be a final diagnosis. Simply a starting point for discussion. She diagnosed me with premature ovarian failure, I said. That's not a preliminary assessment. That's a definitive medical conclusion based on fabricated evidence. Extrapolated data, Walter interjected. Not fabricated. Is there a difference? Patricia asked. When you diagnose someone with a condition they don't have? Helen shifted tactics. The point is, we were concerned about the family's future. Owen needs an heir. That's not unreasonable. I'm pregnant, I said flatly. With Owen's child. So your concern was unfounded? Yes, well. Helen's mask slipped slightly. That does complicate things. Which is why I wanted to meet. To discuss arrangements that benefit everyone. Arrangements. I leaned forward. You mean buying my silence? I mean ensuring the child is raised properly. In the environment befitting a Stannis heir. And where do I fit into this environment? Helen's pause said everything. That depends on you. If you're willing to be reasonable, we can structure something beneficial. A trust fund for the child. A settlement for you. Full support from the family. In exchange for what? Discretion. About the recent misunderstandings. About private family matters that don't need to become public. There it was. The real reason for this meeting. You want me to kill the story, I said. I want you to reconsider whether airing family grievances in the press serves anyone's interests. Including yours. Helen's voice hardened. That article will destroy you, Sloane. Boston society doesn't forgive women who betray their families. I didn't betray my family. You did. When you tried to have me erased. I tried to protect my son from a marriage that wasn't working. Is that really so terrible? When you do it by gaslighting me about my fertility? Yes. That's terrible. Owen spoke for the first time. Mother, maybe we should focus on the settlement terms. There are no settlement terms, I interrupted. Because I'm not negotiating. Patricia, Do you want to explain why? Patricia pulled out a folder. Because Mrs. Stannis has committed multiple crimes. Medical fraud. Conspiracy. Defamation. Harassment. And based on what happened to Caroline Stannis, potentially wrongful death. Helen went very still. Caroline was mentally ill. Caroline was healthy until you had her institutionalized, I said. I've spoken to her daughter. I have her medical records. I know what you did. Caroline's case has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. It's your playbook. Fabricate mental illness, isolate the victim, destroy their credibility, then eliminate them. You did it to Caroline. You were doing it to me. That's absurd. I pulled out my phone, opening the screenshots. September 16th, you texted Tabitha, Sloane is unsuitable. We need to handle this carefully. October 3rd, Owen is attached. We need to make him see reason gradually. October 10th, I've contacted Meryl. She's agreed to help. I slid the phone across the table. Helen stared at the messages, her face losing color. You planned my removal for months, I continued. You recruited Meryl to replace me. You paid Dr. Shelby Brennan to diagnose me with infertility. You staged the grocery store confrontation to make me look unstable. You hired a private investigator to follow me. You sent that email to the foundation board calling me mentally ill. This is taken out of context. Then explain the context. Explain why you needed to handle me. Explain what you meant by making Owen see reason. Explain why Meryl needed to help. Helen looked at Walter, who was staring at his hands. She looked at Owen, who couldn't meet her eyes. I was protecting my son, she said finally. From a marriage that was clearly failing. The marriage was failing because you sabotaged it, I said. You excluded me from family events. You removed me from the foundation board. You gave my husband's ex-girlfriend the family pearls. You made Owen sleep in a different room. You controlled every aspect of our lives until there was nothing left to save. That's not. And when your plan worked, when Owen and I were barely speaking, you presented your fake diagnosis as the final nail. Proof that I was defective. That Owen should replace me with someone suitable. Helen stood abruptly. This meeting is over. Sit down, Patricia commanded. We're not finished. I don't take orders from you. Then take them from reality. In 6 hours, the Boston Globe runs a front-page story detailing everything you've done. Including Caroline. Including the affair with Walter that you covered up by having your sister-in-law committed. Including your current campaign against Sloane. Helen sat down slowly. The story runs with or without your cooperation, Patricia continued. But if you walk out of this meeting, you lose any chance to minimize the damage. What do you want? Helen's voice was ice. I pulled out an envelope. Inside were 2 documents. This is a sworn affidavit admitting to fraud regarding my medical diagnosis. And this is a letter of apology to Caroline's daughter for what you did to her mother. I'll never sign those. Then enjoy your front-page scandal. Helen grabbed the documents, scanning them with shaking hands. This is extortion. This is accountability, I corrected. You sign these, we include your statement in the article. You admit fault, express remorse, and maybe, Boston forgives you eventually. And if I don't sign? Then you're exposed as a monster who destroyed 2 women to maintain control. You flee to London while your reputation burns. And everyone knows you ran because you were guilty. Helen looked at Owen. Say something. Tell her this is madness. Owen stared at his mother with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between horror and grief. Is it true? About Caroline? About the affair with Walter? Owen. Is it true? Helen's silence was answer enough. Owen stood, his chair scraping against the floor. I can't, I need air. He walked out, leaving Helen alone with her choices. She looked at the documents again, then at me. For the first time since I'd known her, Helen Stannis looked old. Frightened. Human. "If I sign these," she said quietly, "what happens to me?" "You face consequences," I said. "Maybe legal, definitely social. But you get to control part of the narrative. You get to show remorse. That's more than Caroline got." Helen's hand trembled as she picked up Patricia's pen. For a long moment, I thought she'd refuse. That pride would win over survival, and she'd let herself be destroyed rather than admit fault. Then she signed. Both documents. Her signature shaky but legible. "There," she said, pushing them across the table. "Are you satisfied?" "No," I said honestly. "But it's a start." Helen stood, gathering her purse with whatever dignity she had left. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're proud." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied. "I just stopped letting you destroy me." She walked out without another word. Walter followed, looking like he was attending his own funeral. Patricia and I sat in silence for a moment. Then she picked up the signed documents, examining them carefully. "These are gold," she said. "Written admission of fault. This changes everything." "Will she try to recant?" "She can try. But she signed them in front of witnesses with sound mind and clear intent. They'll hold up." I pulled out my phone, stopping the recording app. 90 minutes of audio, including Helen's admission that she'd been protecting Owen from me, her inability to explain the damning text messages, her reluctant signature on documents admitting fraud. "Rebecca needs to hear this," I said. "She will. But first," Patricia looked at me seriously, "how are you doing?" That was brutal. "I'm okay." And surprisingly, I was. Watching Helen sign those documents, seeing her facade finally crack, it felt like something heavy lifting off my chest. "I'm really okay." My phone buzzed. A text from Owen, "Can we talk? Please?" I looked at the message for a long moment, then put my phone away without responding. Some conversations could wait. Sunday, December 24th, 12 weeks pregnant 3 months later, 5 months pregnant. The Boston Globe story went live online at 3 p.m. Rebecca sent me the link. "It's done." The headline, "The Stannis Dynasty's Dark Secret, How Boston's Most Respected Family Used Medicine as a Weapon Against Women." I sat in Rebecca's guest room with Angel and Patricia, reading. Rebecca had written it beautifully, methodical, factual, damning. Caroline's story led, with Catherine Mercer's testimony. Then Walter's confession. My story came next, the fake infertility diagnosis versus my actual clean bill of health, the text messages, Meryl's recruitment, the grocery store confrontation, Owen's hidden diagnosis of severe oligospermia. Finally, Helen's signed confession from this morning's meeting. Within hours, my phone exploded. "Tabitha, Paul and I are moving to California. We're done with this family. Johnny Stannis, you're a hero. Caroline would be proud." The story was trending nationally. #Stannis Scandal. Think pieces were being written in real time about generational wealth, medical abuse, silencing of women. By 5 p.m., news vans surrounded the Stannis estate. "Helen Stannis has left the country," the reporter announced. Sources say she boarded a private flight to London this afternoon. She'd run. Owen called at 6 p.m. His voice sounded hollowed out. "Where are you?" he asked. "Somewhere safe. There are reporters everywhere. I don't know what to tell them." "Tell them the truth." "The truth is I don't know where my pregnant wife is or if she's ever coming back." Silence. "Then, I'm sorry. For everything. For not believing you. For not protecting you. For being too weak to stand up for us." "Okay. Okay? That's all? What do you want me to say, Owen? That I forgive you? That we can fix this? You chose your mother over me every single time. I was in shock. You've been in shock for 9 months? No. You were complicit. She's still my mother. And I'm still your wife. Or I was. I don't know what we are anymore. Are you filing for divorce? I don't know. Right now, I'm focused on protecting myself and our baby. Everything else can wait. Can I see you? Not yet. Maybe not for a while. I need space. Real space. I left the estate. I can't be there right now. After the story ran, I read everything. Really read it. And I realized I'd been living in denial. His voice cracked. I should have believed you. Yes. You should have. Is there any way we could try to fix this? I don't know. I need time. And therapy. A lot of therapy. Whatever you need. Then respect my space. No calls unless it's an emergency. When I'm ready, I'll reach out. Okay. By morning, the Stannis Foundation had suspended Helen from all positions. 3 charities returned her donations. The Stannis wing of Boston Children's Hospital removed her name. Helen's empire was crumbling. The truth had done all the work. Detective Martinez from Boston PD called. We'd like to speak with you about Helen Stannis's activities. We're building a case. I'll be there this afternoon. I touched my stomach. 12 weeks. In 6.5 months, this baby would be born into a completely different world. No Stannis estate. No society events. No Helen. Just me, my baby, and whatever future we could build. 3 months later, I stood in my Brooklyn apartment, a 2-bedroom in Park Slope, unpacking boxes while Angel directed movers. 5 months pregnant now, showing a real bump I couldn't hide. The divorce papers had been filed in November. Owen hadn't contested. Full custody to me, child support, visitation rights once the baby was born. His lawyer said he was in therapy, working through years of enmeshment with his mother. Good for him. But that wasn't my responsibility anymore. Helen had been indicted on multiple charges: medical fraud, conspiracy, criminal harassment. Walter Petter had turned state's witness, providing decades of documentation. The trial was set for spring. Dr. Shelby Brennan had lost her medical license. The fertility clinic settled with me out of court, enough to cover the baby's college fund and then some. I'd started nursing school again, NYU's accelerated program. My professors were understanding about the pregnancy, the media attention. One told me her aunt had been one of Helen's victims in the 80s. The apartment came together. A couch from IKEA. Pictures on the walls, my mom, college friends, the life I'd had before. The nursery was soft yellow and white. A crib I'd assembled myself. My grandmother's rocking chair. A mobile with clouds and stars. On the dresser sat 2 framed photos. My 20-week ultrasound, my daughter, sucking her thumb, impossibly peaceful. The other was Caroline Stannis, young, maybe 30, laughing. Before Helen destroyed her life. She would have been proud, Catherine had said when she gave me the photo. I touched my growing belly. Grace Morrison, I said aloud. No Stannis. Just Morrison. My phone buzzed. Owen, how's the move going? We texted occasionally. Polite updates. He'd asked if he could be present for the birth. I'd said maybe. I typed back, good. Getting settled. His response, I'm glad. You deserve peace. I did deserve peace. And slowly, in this small Brooklyn apartment far from Beacon Hill, I was finding it. Angel brought me tea and we sat on the couch. You did it, she said. You got out. We did it. I couldn't have survived without you. My daughter kicked. I put my hand on my stomach, feeling her move. Grace Morrison, I repeated. Your mom's going to cry when you tell her. Happy tears this time. My mother was coming next week to help. She'd been furious about Helen, proud I'd fought back, relieved I was free. This was my home now. Mine and Grace's. As the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the apartment in gold light, I thought about revenge. Not the hot, angry kind that consumes you, but the quiet kind that came from rebuilding. From taking everything someone tried to destroy and making it beautiful again. Helen was in Boston, awaiting trial, her reputation destroyed. Owen was in therapy. Meryl had moved to San Francisco. The Stannis dynasty was crumbling under its own toxicity. And I was here, growing a daughter who would never know what it meant to be a Stannis wife. Who would never have to shrink herself. Who would know from birth that her voice mattered, her truth mattered, not because of the family she came from, but because she was herself. I picked up my tea and toasted the empty apartment. To new beginnings, I said. Grace kicked in agreement. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with life. I opened the window, letting the noise in, and smiled. This was what freedom tasted like. Not bitter, not vengeful. Just clean and true and mine. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.